Another Tuesday has passed and another DC animated movie has been released, this being Catwoman Hunted, which is a Catwoman anime, kind of in the vein of Batman Ninja, but also not. The animation is quite different. They're just both anime. And I will say up front that I do enjoy Batman Ninja much more, not only because it's a Batman movie and I prefer Batman over Catwoman as a character, but I think just every aspect of that movie is better. I enjoy the animation more. I think the voice cast is better. I think the plot is better. The writing is better. The character work is better. Everything about Batman Ninja I prefer to this, but also, even though I would probably say I do dislike this film, I don't hate it. It does have good elements. Considering how low the budget for this film probably was, although the anime I've seen, I'm not an avid anime watcher or anything. I don't watch anime really at all. I've just seen this and Batman Ninja and Yu-Gi-Oh! And shit like that from my childhood. So I am the furthest thing from an expert on anime, but as far as I could tell, the animation was pretty good. It could have been much worse. I figure this is a pretty cheap movie, so I didn't really have any complaints about the animation itself. Definitely not the best I've seen, but I usually don't let the animation itself bug me if the movie is trying to tell an actual story, which although I didn't love this story, it was telling a story. And the entire plot of this movie is just Catwoman steals an emerald from Barbara Minerva, who everyone, of course, probably knows as Cheetah by now. And I definitely think the premise was a bit too basic for the runtime of this movie. This felt like it should have just been a longer episode of an animated show, like 40 minutes would have done this okay. But an hour and 18 minutes was a bit too long. I do think I enjoyed the first act the most of all the acts. The second act was probably my least favorite, and the third act was second, so the middle part of the movie is my least favorite, which probably makes me not hate this movie as much because it's in the middle and it's not at the beginning of the end, so it's not going to be as fresh in my mind. I know that's kind of a backhanded compliment, but I also should mention that I watched the dubbed version, not the subbed version, so I don't know how much of the movie is taken away from that, if any, because I have got to say, no offense to the voice actors, of course, but overall, I did not love this cast. My favorite, by far, was Jonathan Banks as Black Mask. I've actually been watching Breaking Bad recently, so he's Mike from Breaking Bad, which I thought was awesome, because Mike is my favorite character in Breaking Bad, so it's freaking cool that they got him for this movie. I've loved Jonathan Banks. Overall, I thought Catwoman was fine. She did her job. She was probably my second favorite character in the movie because no one was on the level of Jonathan Banks, in my opinion, and no one aside from Catwoman and Batwoman had enough to do, really. I mean, Barbara, I guess, had enough to do. Batwoman was probably by far my least favorite part of this movie, though. She just felt really out of place for some reason. The way she was written was not good. A lot of the dialogue in this film I found pretty cringy. It was kind of hard to watch. It was hard to get through. And a lot of it was her dialogue, so it's definitely not all in the voice actress. It's probably mostly due to the writing because a lot of it just felt weird and unnatural. And again, I don't know how much of that is due to me watching the dubbed version. I don't know if it would flow better and transition better as a real human conversation and subbed more. I find that a lot of times with any comic book movies, live action or animated, it kind of comes down to the villains, whether they're good or not, and obviously dependent upon the heroes as well. I know there are some exceptions, primarily with Marvel movies, MCU movies, but most of the time I find that if the villain is good, the movie is good. The main villain, that is. And this movie is a weird one because it doesn't really have much of a main villain. I would say Cheetah is probably the main villain. I mean, she is the big bad of the movie, but she isn't really the main villain. Because none of the villains get like a ton of screen time, in all honesty. They all get plenty, but none of them get as much as I think we are accustomed to with primary villains in these movies. Black Mask was unfortunately not the main villain of this movie. If he were, maybe I would enjoy this movie a bit more, because he was by far the best part, as I've already mentioned. The score helps make up for some of the bad dialogue at times. The score doesn't always seem like it fits to me. I'm not accustomed to anime type scores in DC movies though, so maybe it's just throwing me off, maybe it's a personal thing. But some of it really is good to me, and it does help what's going on in the movie. It helps keep my attention because I'm into the music even if I'm not into what's going on at the forefront. Most of the action scenes I found to be pretty whatever. There is a car chase scene that I found to be pretty entertaining though, so that helps elevate my enjoyment of the film just a little. That's also why I prefer the first act, because that's when this scene takes place. And this is a slight spoiler, it's nothing major, so I'm just gonna say it. It actually used logic, which I appreciated, because the beginning of this car chase scene takes place on a bridge just after Catwoman has stolen the emerald. So the entire setup for the movie has happened. We're out the gate, it's a car chase scene, the action has ensued. And some of the dialogue is cringe, but it's also logical, so this is also where I'm like, is this a dub thing? Because it's something that makes sense, but it's just not worded in a way that people would talk in the real world. And at the same time, I also think it's being played for laughs, which, another thing, the comedy of this movie, not much of it worked for me at all. There's too much of it, also, in my opinion. And too much of it missed, so that drags the movie down a ton. But the logical thing they said was they can't wreck her off the bridge because she has the emerald that they're trying to get back. And I was like, okay, good on you. You actually put some thought into that, and I don't really care how bad of a movie it is. If I see that you put thought into some of the writing, I appreciate it. I think the main problem with the movie is that there wasn't enough focus on many characters, so it was hard to get attached to anyone. The writing could have definitely been improved. And again, I don't know how much of that was due to watching dubbed versus subbed, but this was a movie I didn't have high expectations for going in. I'm not an anime fan. I'm not a huge Catwoman fan. I think she's an okay character, but I've never really gravitated towards her in a major way or anything. Batwoman didn't really excite me. The trailers were fine. It's just nothing about this movie really looked super impressive to me. Nothing had me looking forward. I can't wait for this movie. Maybe if you're a Catwoman fan, you are like this and couldn't wait for this movie. Maybe it's better to you if you're a Catwoman fan. Maybe it's worse. I don't know. But overall, I didn't really enjoy the film. It could have been stronger in a lot of departments. It does have some good elements. I think it has enough good things to save it from being worst of the worst, but when it comes to DC animated movies, it's definitely near the bottom for me. So with all that being said, I would give Catwoman Hunted a D+. And you're probably saying, but Braden, I thought you said you didn't hate this film. Why are you giving it a D+? I don't hate this film. A D+ is not a terrible grade for me. A D+, it's not a good movie, but it's also not terrible. It had good elements. The majority of the film, however, was more missed than hit, unfortunately for me. I have seen more boring DC animated movies before those, so I have to give it that much. If you've seen this movie, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys next time.